Welcome to Stack Hunters. I'm Bradley Stalder. Along with me, Dan Williamson and guest Derek Brown of Fantasy Pros. D-Bro joining the Stack Hunters crew for this evening. We're going to be picking Derek Brown's brain about some critical fantasy best ball draft decisions. How are we going to discern the Green Bay Packers wide receivers? Is Jordan Addison the next Jahan Dotson? And what are we going to do with Jaleel McLaughlin? All of that and more right after this. All right, D-Bro, welcome to Stack Hunters. Happy to have you on for this Best Ball podcast.
Oh, man, I'm glad to sit here and be talking ball with the two of you. Two of the sharpest guys in the best ball streets, baby. It's going to be a good time. And we haven't talked about any of these players pre-show out on the socials and stuff like that. So very interesting where this show goes. I think it's going to be a winding road. People got to tune into all of it, man.
Dan, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Always good to be talking football with you guys. It's been a minute and a half since I've chopped it up with D-Bro back on the Goat District. I don't know, like a year and a half ago or so at least, I think. But glad to be talking with him again. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Dan, all I heard was we need to saddle back up on Go District. So
right.
That's all I heard out of that.
Right. Exactly.
Go it up. That's right. Well, we'll start off with a critical decision. Usually in the second round, there's a wide receiver who's been receiving some, shall we say it, news. There's been rumblings about Brandon Aiyuk for weeks now, months, dating back to the NFL draft. He was reportedly on the trade block along with Deebo Samuel. And then the San Francisco 49ers draft Ricky Pearsall in the first round. Then they also draft Jacob Cowling in the fourth round. But Brandon Aiyuk is lingering in the middle of the second round in our best ball drafts. D-Bro, we'll start with you. How are you approaching Brandon Aiyuk in that position? We understand that the wide receivers are all moved up in the underdog streets, but is this the right price for Brandon Aiyuk? And how are you discerning the San Francisco situation?
I think it's a fair price for Aiyuk. And I will say with the recent news, and this isn't just like fodder BS. Like if you want the real, go listen to it out of Aiyuk's mouth on the latest episode of The Pivot. Like I watched that entire episode the other day and it was so awesome. Like the transparency Aiyuk was given. I mean, he legit loves Jayden Daniels. And for everybody out there that isn't aware, they played together at Arizona State. Like that connection is real. And I think it was Ryan Clark specifically asked Brandon Aiyuk, if you're in your mind's eye, where could you see yourself playing this upcoming season? And of course he said the 49ers, but in the same breath, he also said, well, there's possibilities of the Commanders. They made offers for me, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think looking at this and leaning into the variance there, I mean, look, I'm just building different stacks out. Whether it's, okay, he stays in San Francisco. You want to go the Purdy route. You want to say, okay, Brandon Aiyuk is moving on. I have been varying whether it's differentiating between Brandon Aiyuk and stacking him up with Jayden Daniels in best ball, or going the Brock Purdy. And if Brandon Aiyuk were to get moved, what is the impact of that? I think the two biggest beneficiaries of that would be Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle. And so looking at those two guys, I'm differentiating my exposures on Brandon Aiyuk, getting wild with some stacks, as well as leaning into San Francisco. And if he were to move on, who gets the bump and who gets a bigger piece of that pie. But I guess the overall part of that, Brad, is I think his ADP is warranted, but I do find myself specifically on underdog when I'm at that spot and it's either Brandon Aiyuk or the wide receivers around him. I do find myself clicking the button more often on Chris Olave and on Nico Collins. I look at both of them. I think median target projections for both of them are higher, and I think the ceiling is higher for both of them. People could be surprised by that, but dude, Aiyuk had a monster, ridiculous, efficient season last year. I think if we're playing the regression game, there's a certain amount of regression we need to bake in just because of how stupid good he was last year. On, 105 targets? That's tough. It's tough to repeat.
Yeah, he had fewer targets last year in 2023 than he did in 2022. Granted, it one fewer game, but you didn't see that ascension, from year 3 to year 4 in terms of target earning. It's a really consolidated target. You know who the targets are. It's Kittle, it's Christian McCaffrey, Debo, and Aiyuk. Dan, how are you approaching mid-round 2, Brandon Aiyuk?
I am out 100% of the way out. I just can't do it. He's gotten at most 114 targets. I don't know how he gets more than that this year. And at that level of targets, I mean, it just requires insane efficiency to pay off his draft capital. So I can't do it. And I'm not one of those people who can sit there and say, I'm going to go, assume he's going to go here, assume he's going to go there. He's in San Francisco until he's not. I can always catch up. I mean, even if he goes to Washington, I'm not sure that his ADP really changes at all. If he goes to Pittsburgh, I'm not sure that his ADP really changes at all. So right now, knowing that he's in San Francisco and knowing what his historical target volume has been, I just have a hard time getting there. There are just so many players that I like so much better. I don't think I'm at 0% Aiyuk, but I'm not far from it.
Yeah, I'm currently at 1% exposure to Aiyuk right now, and it's been difficult because you're also thinking, how can I get a little bit creative? Aiyuk typically isn't falling to the 2-3 turn. He's usually getting drafted about 18 to 20, sometimes at 16. And I agree with you, Debro. I'm finding myself clicking a lot of Chris Olave over Brandon Aiyuk. The pathway, the unrealized air yards for Olave was just massive last year, and the distance between Olave and Rashid Shaheed, the wide receiver 2 on New Orleans, is just so significant. There's not very much of a gap between Brandon Aiyuk and a Debo Samuel. It's within the range of outcomes that Debo Samuel gets more fantasy points, and by a lot, in 2024. So I agree with you guys. I think Brandon Aiyuk is one that we can be either agnostic or negative toward in round 2 of our fantasy drafts. You mentioned, Debro, this is a great transition, the possibility of Brandon Aiyuk teaming up with Jayden Daniels. Right now, Daniels is being drafted as the quarterback 11 on Underdog Fantasy. He's my projected quarterback 9. How, is the pathway for Jayden Daniels quarterback 5? Is that within the range of outcomes? Or is it also scary that he's a rookie quarterback with a new head coach? And we have questions after Terry McLaurin on this offense. How are you approaching Jayden Daniels, Debro?
I am drafting the ever-loving shit out of Jayden Daniels. I'm drafting all of him. I've got him as my QB 10 right now, and as we move up, and you talked about where the market is right now, Bradley. Dude, he was QB 13, QB 14. My exposure is extreme. I'm at 36% right now for Jayden Daniels. And part of that, and I want to say, yes, is that massively, stupidly overweight on him? Sure. But I know that his price is going to go up. And you're saying QB 11. I think we could see him continue to inch up. QB 10, QB 9. I think that is in the range for him. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of when we close the books on this year's best ball season, he gets maybe up to QB 7. Probably not, because people are just sour on this Washington Commanders offense, and I really don't get it, man. This is one of... And I put out my exposures today in a tweet, my top 25 players, and people are like, wow, you really love Washington. I'm like, why do people not love Washington? We have a rushing quarterback. We have a consolidated passing offense. It all goes back to all this bullshit we see every single year where it's I got to see it first. Come on, man. If you're waiting to see it, you're getting screwed. You're not capitalizing on value and closing line value. If you're waiting for training camp to open and you need the blurbs to tell you some of these things, you're already behind the freaking 8 ball. And part of that is Jayden Daniels with the other parts of this offense. Cliff Kingsbury, and not to go down a rabbit hole here or a tangent here, but Cliff Kingsbury, we have seen year after year after year, uses one freaking guy at the goal line. I don't care if Jayden Daniels is a Russian quarterback. That's fine. If this offense runs a crap ton of plays, which they are going to, it doesn't matter, dude. We've seen James Conner. We've seen Kenyon Drake. ranked top 5, top 10 in rushing attempts for inside the 5, inside the 10, inside the red zone. Brian Robinson is a wonderful value. Terry McLaurin is getting drafted as a wide receiver 3. He's in that long tier of wide receiver 3s. Again, I'm over the field. I think last time I looked at it, and I don't want to sit here and lie to you guys. Let me look at this. I think I'm at 22% Terry McLaurin. Again, like I think that this offense is being slept on, and when I'm in these best ball streets and either I'm trying to coordinate stacks, or maybe I'm trying to get different from the field and I'm starting maybe running back, and then I'm playing catch up at wide receiver, McLaurin is a fantastic target. And again, going down the Jayden Daniels rabbit hole, everybody was like at the beginning of best ball season, oh, Ben Sinnot's overdrafted. Takes one Zach Ertz injury to clear the runway. He's a full-time freaking player and probably a top 12 tight end. So give me all parts and pieces of the Commanders offense. I know you asked me specifically about Jayden Daniels, but I want all of it. Give me all of it. And I didn't even mention Luke McCaffrey here either.
Dan, do you share Derek's enthusiasm for the Washington Commanders offense?
I definitely share his enthusiasm for Jayden Daniels. The offense, I don't know if I can quite reach that level. I'm on my way, but I'm not quite there. But Jayden Daniels, definitely I share the enthusiasm. I mean, all we have to do is think back a little over a decade ago at another time that Washington took a quarterback number 2 overall, somebody named Robert Griffin III, and that guy worked out real well, made me a lot of money. And we're talking, Jayden Daniels is really kind of the same player in a lot of ways. Hopefully he does not get hurt as easily as RG3, and hopefully his coach does not leave him in when he shouldn't while he's hurt. But other than that, there's everything I like about Jayden Daniels. He's going to finish, I think, easily top 8 in the NFL if he stays healthy as far as quarterbacks for fantasy. I would rather have Daniels than C.J. Stroud. I'd rather have him than Joe Burrow. I'd rather have him than Jordan Love. I'd rather have him than Dak Prescott. I mean, that's where I'm at on him. There's no reason why you would draft any of those guys over Daniels, who can score with his legs and he can score with his arm. He's a good thrower of the football. He's made improvements every year as a quarterback, and as a runner, he's electric. So I'm all in on the Jayden Daniels train. I've been drafting, as Derek would say, drafting the shit out of him. So I'm right there with you, Derek.
Dude, Kyler Murray in those years in the Cliff Kingsbury offense, I mean, it's literally, you're talking top 12 locked-in quarterback with top 5 upside, QB 11,
Absolutely.
QB 3, QB 4, QB 7. Like, what about any of that? And I can argue that Jayden Daniels is a better thrower of the damn football than Kyler Murray has ever been.
I would agree with that.
Well, it makes my 17% exposure to Jayden Daniels feel low, guys. Jeez, oh, Pete's. But look, the encouraging thing is that he's following, at least from a coaching perspective, the Anthony Richardson trajectory. He is getting all the first-team reps. It is not Drake May who's losing first-team reps to Jacoby Brissett. It's not J.J. McCarthy losing first-team reps to Sam Darnold. The Washington Commanders have just put chips in on Jayden Daniels from day one and said he's going to be our guy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's what you want to see from an organization, because that's what the Colts did with Anthony Richardson last offseason. There was no quarterback controversy. There was no question of, is he going to be the starter? He's going to get all the reps. He's going to get all the practice. And that's what's going to put Jayden Daniels significantly above any of the other, rookie quarterbacks that went after him in the draft that are, is it going to work out? Jayden Daniels, the pathway is so significant there. And I also want to say I'm big in on Brian Robinson as well. I have him projected about 4 rounds ahead of where he's going right now. He's going in the 110s-ish.
That's ridiculous, man.
He should be in the 70s, like late 60s, in the 70s, somewhere in that spot. And so I agree. There's a lot of value to be found on Washington. We're going to dive into a few of the wide receiver spots. But before we do, a word from our sponsors.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
That's right. Go get it on FFPC. And we're also going to be going and getting some LA Ram wide receivers on our fantasy teams. The most obvious is first round Puka Nacua. Both Debro. I have to say, I think there's only one person in the industry who was ahead of me on Puka Nacua, and that was Derek Brown. I went through my tweets and I was like, man, it was like end of February, beginning of March when I started tweeting, and then I'm like, Debro beat me by months on Puka Nacua, but geez, oh Pete's, I was trying to like get the biggest flag plant, and Debro is the Puka Nacua truther, but also Cooper Kupp is getting drafted in the top 24 wide receivers still. There's a late Rams wide receiver that's also drafted outside the top 150, Demarcus Robinson. Derek, we've got some good wide receivers. We know that Matthew Stafford is the kingmaker in terms of wide receiver fantasy. How are you approaching the Rams wide receivers, given that Tyler Higbee is also expected to miss some time with the ACL tear?
I'm drafting when I'm anywhere like at the 7th spot. I think the conversation starts at the 7th spot for Puka Nacua. Anywhere from the 7th on, I'm taking Puka Nacua if he drops to me. I mean, he's in that scrum of like A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, but like out of those three guys, I'm taking Puka over both of them. And I just think the conversation's easy, man. Like when both Kupp and Nacua were on the field last year at the same time, Puka Nacua was the wide receiver 12 in fantasy. We want to say we want to invest in talented sophomore wide receivers. You can't do any better than breaking every NFL record for a rookie. So that is a player that I want to be higher than consensus. I want to be drafting. He has in his range, and we saw it at the very beginning of last season, he could go on a Cooper Kupp-esque type of wide receiver 1 overall, top 3 type of role. That can happen. Just if he takes another step. Like, Kupp can stay healthy. I'm not saying that Kupp has to go out with an injury. Now, am I projecting 15, 20 targets? No, in that scenario. But can I get 10? Can I get 12? Can he be the clear number 1 in that Rams passing attack? Absolutely. And for everybody that played Matthew Stafford in DFS last year, you rostered him on your team, you saw a ton of the touchdown production go to Kyren Williams when they got inside the red zone. Some of that goes back towards the passing attack. This year, I think it's wheels up for Puka Nacua, because even with Kupp limited last year, his red zone role was absolutely ridiculous. If, again, some more of that high leverage usage goes to Nacua, he could be a top 3 guy this year, and it doesn't take a whole lot. Where he's going in drafts, I'm fading Cooper Kupp. You look at the age curve, you look at what's happened to him in the last few years. Are the peripherals bad? No. Are they declining? Yes. So Kupp is a guy, unless I'm trying to correlate like week 17 and things like that, is just a player that I'm pretty much, I don't want to say full fading, but it's really close to it. But when targeting that passing attack, it's a ton of Nacua. And yet, dude, right now, Demarcus Robinson is my 8th highest drafted wide receiver. Like, where he's going, it's free money. It's been free money. You're seeing now on social, people are waking up and now starting to talk about him. Dude, we've been out, people have been drafting Demarcus Robinson, have been out here for weeks, months drafting him. And the process was always there. And the production was there. He's going to be the 3rd wide receiver. This is a team that runs 3 wide receiver sets at the highest rate in the freaking NFL. When Demarcus Robinson was a full-time player last year, I think people will need to unhinge themselves from the name and understand the production that he was giving us. So weeks 13 through 18, amongst 109 qualifying wide receivers. He was 36th in yards per route run, 28th in first downs per route run. He was also 26th in fantasy points per route run, producing as the wide receiver 31 in fantasy points per game. So as a wide receiver who's being left for dead at the end of drafts in the wide receiver 6, 7, good Lord, what are we doing back here type of bucket? If you're trying to marry him, and I think this is how I'm approaching it best with him, I'm taking him as my wide receiver 8 or 9 on so many different builds. But also, if you're trying to marry, like, I want to draft somebody like a Ricky Pearsall or a Jermaine Burton. Maybe they start slow out the gate, but I can get production out of Demarcus Robinson, out of a veteran at the early parts of the season, hopefully for the entirety of the season. But at least all I'm asking for him is give me some spike week production, cover bye weeks, cover some of these lulls where I'm teaming or tag teaming him with a rookie. And all I'm saying is, DeMarcus, you handle the wide receiver 3, maybe the flex spot, give me some spike week action at the beginning of the season, and the rookie hammer takes over down the stretch.
Dan, are you as high on Puka in year 2 as Debro?
I am probably not quite as high on Debro, but I am basically right down the line with him on all of his reasoning. I am more even weight on Puka than I am overweight, but I fully agree with everything that Debro was saying, and that goes right into Demarcus Robinson, who I've been drafting since February. He's just so easy to draft, and especially with the Rams tight end situation as it is. That just even makes it more likely that Demarcus Robinson is going to be contributing earlier in the year. So I'm totally on board with that as well. Cooper Kupp, I'm pretty much like Debro. I'm not full fading him, but I'm going to be underweight on him just because I do have concerns about how well he can continue to play at his age with his injury history. It won't surprise me if all of a sudden we find out, Cooper Kupp is wide receiver, 13 or 15 or something like that at the end of the year. But I don't think that's going to break me if I'm just somewhat underweight on him.
One other point about Demarcus Robinson is the Rams went out and re-signed him. He was a priority ad this offseason. The other part is that the Rams got rid of Ben Skoranek. Skoranek for a while was Sean McVay's guy. He's going to get some empty routes. He was getting useless targets. And then Puka Nacua stepped up. But with the loss of Tyler Higbee for at least part of the season, we expect the answer is not going to be Davis Allen or, whatever tertiary tight end for the Rams. It's going to be the third receiving option. That's Demarcus Robinson for the Rams. There's also another player that is getting drafted pretty highly in the 140s or so. Running back 44, also dealing with a massive knee injury, but there's been some rumblings about Nick Chubb possibly being ready for week 1. I'm a little skeptical given the disaster. It was a bad injury. We all saw it. I would not recommend showing it. Maybe you showed it to your enemies if you want to traumatize them. But it was really nasty, gnarly looking injury. And while he may be on track to be for week 1, is he actually going to be ready for week 1? Are they going to put him on the pup to start the season? Is it going to be a split seat sort of thing? Is Chubb even going to look like himself when he comes back? There's a lot of questions about Nick Chubb, running back 44, end of round 12. Dan, we'll start with you. Are you buying or selling Nick Chubb at running back 44?
There are a lot of questions around Nick Chubb, and I got an answer for you. It's called Jerome Ford.
Yes.
Jerome Ford.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
I don't need to say any more than that. I mean, Ford did great in the role. Okay, I will say a little more than that. Donta Foreman, also a nice pick in the late rounds. So you can go either way, but I'm definitely making the bets against Chubb. I just don't have great experience with players who are coming back at that age from an injury as gruesome as what that was. They can talk all they want about how they're excited to see Chubb back and everything else, but at the end of the day, this is going to be an offense that runs the ball an awful lot. I don't think Chubb's going to be up to the task. It's going to be Jerome Ford and or down to Foreman. Give me either, give me both, but don't give me too much Chubb.
D-Bro, how are you approaching?
I'm just drafting Jerome Ford a ton, man. I'm way overweight on him. I don't understand what we're doing regarding him. He's RB39 and underdog right now. Like, people are treating him like this is one of those ambiguous backfields, and it's like they don't know what to do with any of it. So either they're just not drafting Jerome Ford, they don't want to draft Nick Chubb, they don't want to draft Deontay Foreman. Nyheim Hines is not even on their radar. It's like people are just pretending like the Browns aren't going to run the ball. They're not going to have a healthy running back. There's nobody to gravitate to. And, like, I just don't understand that, man. Like, why in the ever-loving hell is Jerome Ford getting drafted behind Chase Brown, Zeke, Gus Edwards, Blake Corum, Tajay Spears? Any of those guys. Like, I don't get it. Like, what did we see out of Jerome Ford last year? He was the RB20 when he was the starter, as well as it's not like he was bad either. Did he go out and just absolutely smash? No, in the sense he wasn't an RB1, but he's a freaking RB2. He put up consistent RB2 production, and you're getting him at almost, I mean, it's an RB4 price tag. Like, people just don't know what to do, so they're avoiding all of it. I'm drafting all of the Jerome Ford, as well as he was really stinking good when he was the starter. He was top 16 in both missed tackles forced per attempt and yards after contact per attempt. Like, if you were to tell me Nick Chubb starts on the pup, not going to be surprised. You were going to tell me we don't see Nick Chubb until middle of the season, not going to be surprised. So at that cost for Jerome Ford, where, and let me look at this up real fast. Jerome Ford is going currently 126th overall, is absolutely criminal. Like, I don't even need much for Jerome Ford to pay off at that price tag. Like, give me Chubb starts on the pup and Jerome Ford's the guy for the first 4 weeks of the season. Okay, Yahtzee. Because even after, if he starts as the clear starter, which can happen, and even if he doesn't retain the role, I'm still getting contingent upside of, okay, say Chubb comes back and then he goes out again. Or Jerome Ford is still leading the backfield, even if Chubb is sitting there taking some of the early down work. We know Chubb is not going to dominate the passing down work. So either way you slice it, Jerome Ford has a role in this backfield. Much less, he could just be the guy. And if that's the case, his ADP is going to go screaming up boards. All we need is one blurb to come out of the first or two days of training camp saying Nick Chubb probably starts on the pup. Jerome Ford is the clear RB1. Pew! He goes screaming up boards, and he's a top 24 running back, probably an ADP.
I think top 24 is the right spot. It would put him at in the Najee Harris, David Montgomery, Jaylen Warren type of range-ish. That would be the right spot, I think, for Jerome Ford if we got the news. Speaking of news, if y'all haven't checked out playerprofiler.com/news, make sure that you are going to playerprofiler.com/news, bookmark that site, because our content creators are doing a great job of updating the news. So when news like Nick Chubb update comes through, you'll see it here, and we'll give you the fantasy take, we'll give you the fantasy spin about what you're supposed to do, what action you're supposed to take, like bump Jerome Ford way up your boards, but it might have been too late by then. You don't want to be reactionary. You want to be proactive in these types of scenarios where it's most likely that Chubb is going to miss at least part of the first part of the season. 4 games, 6 games, something like that is very real for Nick Chubb. So let's be proactive. Let's be drafting some Jerome Ford and sprinkling in Donta Foreman as well, given that Foreman, we thought career was over a few years ago with the Achilles injury, and now he's looked like a renaissance man, bouncing from team to team, holding down the fort wherever he goes now. So it's very real that Donta Foreman, I think that the Cleveland Browns like Jerome Ford on their depth chart better, but bringing in a guy like Foreman at least gives you some solid veteran presence in the between the tackles type of scenario, maybe not taking all of the maybe Ford won't take all of the brunt hits is what I'm getting at.
Yep.
All right.
Totally agree.
Yep.
We'll keep her going here. Chris Olave, wide receiver for the Saints. I mentioned him earlier. He's one of my flag plant guys for 2024. But right now, we've got a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. Derek Carr is still there. Derek Carr last year was either check down king or air it the heck out in terms of passing. And so we still have Alvin Kamara, the dump off king. But can Kubiak scheme to get Chris Olave the ball better compared to what was happening last year where there were so many air yards left on the table? D-Bro, how likely is it that Chris Olave can take that next step into ascending from a mid wide receiver 2 to now maybe into that top 12, top 10, top 5 scenario for what we hoped he would be?
I think he definitely can. I think we've already seen this, guys, too. It's like Derek Carr started off the season so bad, and then he was banged up, he was hurt. Once we saw this offense kind of get its legs underneath it, and the other thing that, like, it was very interesting, and I've pointed this out on a few different shows recently, but, like, I was really surprised, man. Like, I'm not going to tell you that, like, I'm over the moon for Derek Carr, but I think, like, this conversation needs to get proper credence as far as, like, because the first thing that people are going to talk about when they discuss Chris Olave is they're going to go right back to Derek Carr, and they're going to say, okay, well, Derek Carr is the one that is going to limit Chris Olave in his production because Derek Carr is not very good.
Right.
I was super surprised, man, when I was actually, like, researching something for Jordan Love. And I went and pulled up, like, the week 13 through 18 when Love kind of took off. The thing I was not expecting to find in this was in weeks 13 through 18, Derek Carr was second in PFF passing grade. He led the NFL in passing touchdowns from that time on. He was also first in adjusted completion rate. So we've already seen this offense operate at a higher level. It was just in a really small sample size. And in that sample size, like, even if you want to go back just a little bit farther before Carr even took off, weeks 9 through 18, Chris Olave was the wide receiver 12 in fantasy points per game. So I think we've already seen some of this in a short, condensed span. And now you're talking about the changes in the coordinator, the changes in the scheme. I think Chris Olave can be a wide receiver 1. I do think that there is a ceiling to it where I think he can be a back-end wide receiver 1. I don't think in my mind's eye he can get to top 3, top 5. And I think what limits him there is not the volume. Because, again, we talked about, like, guys you're taking in the second round, making a case versus, like, Nico and Brandon Aiyuk and others guys. Chris Olave is the unquestioned, easy wide receiver 1 in his offense. And from what we've already seen from him so far, like, 138 targets last year, he could sniff into the 150 range this year, the 160 range this year. What I think limits the ceiling on him, it comes back to the size and the touchdowns. Like, I think Chris Olave, the targets can be there. He can be a wide receiver 1. Again, he's already produced like that in short order. What I question is the receiving touchdown upside. Like, I think he can get into 7, 8 touchdowns. I don't think he can be a double-digit touchdown guy, and that limits his ceiling from maybe he, in the best case of best run out, wide receiver 7, 8-ish range. I think the touchdowns are what keep him from having a top 3, top 5 type of ceiling with everything that, and I said I love him, but I think that is what limits his ceiling ultimately is the touchdowns.
Yeah, and there are guys in that Saints offense that just have really high touchdown rates. We talk about Juwan Johnson, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara. I mean, heck, even backup Jamal Williams gets a high percentage of his touches are touchdowns. Historically, Dan, are you drafting a lot of Chris Olave mid-round 2? I know you were talking about fading Brandon Aiyuk. Does that mean you have to draft somebody in mid-round 2? Is it Chris Olave?
It really is, and a lot of it is by default because I'm not, again, I'm not real in on Kupp. I'm not real in on Aiyuk, so I find myself hitting that button a little bit more often. And D-Bro said it just pretty much perfectly, as far as what the case for Olave is and what his limitations are. I could not agree more. I'm not going to go back over all that because I agree with him 100%. I promise if I come up with anything I don't agree with Debro, I'm going to call him on it. But
please do. Take me to task, baby. I'm here for it.
But so far, you're belting every one of them out of the park like it's batting practice, man. So
swing from the heels, baby. That's what we got to do, Dan.
That's right.
This is the way. Well, we're also, Debro, you're going to have to be a tiebreaker for us because when we are just dissecting the Green Bay Packers wide receivers, Dan is team Jayden Reed, right? And I am team Christian Watson. No. I'm Watson as well. Oh no!
I was wondering where you were going with that. I was like,
3! Yes.
I was trying to recall if Dan was Jayden Reed, team Jayden Reed, but
I'm so here for all this smoke. I love it.
That's
great.
Yes, we are here for all of the Christian Watson.
Watson and Wicks, baby.
Watson and Wicks.
I'm with that.
Those are the guys who are eventually, I think, going to win on the outside. I agree with y'all. Romeo Doubs, the coaches like him.
Yep.
But we'll see if Wicks can take that next step and earn his way onto the field. I'm concerned with Jayden Reed, and I know that I was talking with Billy and Theo Greminger last night about the Green Bay Packers wide receivers, and they were very much like, well, it's Jayden Reed. And I'm like, well, there's
Jayden Reed.
It's not Jayden Reed. He's gonna be pulled off the field from time to time. They love Musgrave and Kraft. This is gonna be really ugly for the Green Bay Packers. I think the only real value is Christian Watson. I mean, if you want to take shots on Dontavian Wicks, fine. But the values of Christian Watson, I don't mind if you want to take some shots on Musgrave either. But Jayden Reed is the one that I have like 1% exposure to in fantasy drafts right now.
Yeah, I'm not drafting much of Jayden Reed. I do have a little bit of Reed exposure because I do have a lot of exposure on Jordan Love. I just think he's easy where he goes. He's top 5. Access to possible top 3, top 5 ceiling because he was the QB5 in fantasy points per game last year.
Yes,
everybody forgets that so quickly. And like, what could Jordan Love have done with a fully healthy Christian Watson, and if he would have been playing well the entire season? Because and I love
Debro, I got to turn my camera off because my pants are off right now.
Well, I mean, it's all the cameras are pulled up here to the top, so there's a reality where we could live in. I'm not going to confirm or deny it, but there is a reality where none of us could be wearing pants right now.
It's possible.
It's possible. As we roll on through this. But with Christian Watson, man, I just don't understand what the hell we're doing here. Like, this is easy. I love the fact that you put this on the show sheet because diagnosing this Packers wide receiver room is not difficult. Like, the Packers have already told us, and we already saw how they're going to operate. And I don't think that's going to change this year. Last year, in weeks 5 through 13, when Christian Watson was playing 50% or more of the snaps, he led the Packers in every damn category that we should care about for wide receivers. He led them in target share, air yard share, yards per route run, end zone targets, first read share, first downs per route run. There's no other metrics you should care about for wide receivers. And he's going to be a full-time player in this offense. Like, Jayden Reed is not a full-time player in this offense. I'm sorry, but he's not. He played 56.8% of the snaps last year. He ran so stinking hot with touchdowns, it's ridiculous. Like, we're talking about he was the wide receiver 26 in fantasy points per game. He was the wide receiver 43 in expected fantasy points per game. He scored 10 total freaking touchdowns. And all of this, while we're not even stating that Christian Watson led them in every category we should care about, when he was actually, and we'll say in air quotes, healthy, I don't think we really saw a fully healthy version of Christian Watson at any point of the season. But the thing that I think we're also missing with context when we talk about the Green Bay Packers from last year, we didn't see a high-functioning Jordan Love and Christian Watson on the field hardly at all. Jordan Love didn't take off, and the light didn't come on for him until week 12, week 13. And So really, you're talking about Christian Watson did all of this. He was leading the team in all these different categories, but Jordan Love was playing quarterback, honestly, terribly to begin the season. So he
Really
wasn't
bad.
even present whenever Love took off and was the guy that we're all investing in for this year's upcoming fantasy season. When we did see Christian Watson with Jordan Love after the light switch came on, well, all he did was finish as wide receiver 13 for the week, wide receiver 8. He had 71 and 94 receiving yards. Christian Watson can do that for the entirety of this season, and he could be a smash freaking value. You're drafting him as a wide receiver 4 right now, which is absolutely freaking ridiculous. Like, I just keep pressing the button on Christian Watson. I know his ADP is going up. I don't give a shit because it's still not high enough to where it should be.
All right, Dan. Christian Watson, we love him, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're gonna talk. I know about a couple players right after this that are going ahead of Christian Watson, and there's no way that they should be. And I'm gonna let Bradley use that as a segue if you want.
Yes.
But yes, yeah,
We will.
And they're both within the same division as well.
We will segue into Jordan Addison, who ran very hot for touchdowns last year as well. Addison made the most of his time with Justin Jefferson out. He had some big plays. There were a couple broken plays as well where he just, the defense, everything looked good. But he also, he produced a little bit with Kirk Cousins out. Rookie year, Jordan Addison, first-round draft capital. But Debro, there are some flags about what he did in year 1. Is that going to be? Are those red flags enough for us to turn off Jordan Addison?
I'm not drafting Jordan Addison this year. I'm not drafting him where he goes. I'm just not, man. Like, I feel like you want to talk about false signal. You want to talk about actually like doing your homework for the numbers and stuff. And I feel like, and trust me, dude, I put out tweets. I said Jordan Addison was Jahan Dotson 2.0, and all of Vikings Twitter came after me. All the Jahan Dotson stands came after me. I mean, they pulled out the pitchforks. They're like, all right, who's got the straw? We're like this. We're going to kill this man. I was like, this is ridiculous, dude. But like, I don't understand if you're looking at the analytics, what are you so damn enamored about with Jordan Addison? Like, I understand the concentrated passing attack. I get that. I understand no TJ Hawkinson for probably part of the year. I understand all of those reasons. That still doesn't make Jordan Addison a great pick. That still doesn't make him good. That still doesn't mean that you can just whisk away all of the stuff about Jordan Addison from last year and pretend like it didn't happen. Jordan Addison finishes a wide receiver 3 in fantasy because he got the 4th most freaking receiving touchdowns in football last year. He was tied with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was behind only Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, and CeeDee Lamb in receiving touchdowns. If you think that Jordan Addison is going to repeat that, good luck to you. I consider and sell you a lot of other things. Like, I got a little sack of magic beans here. I can tell you a wonderful story about they'll send you to the promised land and help you grow a beanstalk. Like, it's ridiculous, man, because if you look at all the stuff outside of freaking touchdowns last year, Jordan Addison was unequivocally terrible. Amongst 81 qualifying wide receivers, and I pull this up, that's basically just all the guys in the NFL that played wide receiver that had a minimum of 50 targets. So 81 guys. This is where your illustrious Jordan Addison ranked last year. 46th in target share, 59th in target per route run rate, 51st in yards per route run, and 58th in first downs per route run. So every single predictive analytic metric outside of fantasy points per game that we can point to say a wide receiver is good or they are being overhyped and you're chasing false signal, he screams landmine this year.
Dan, you're the Minnesota Vikings fan. Does D-Bro's words hurt you deeply? Do we need to, ameliorate this relationship? Or are you also feeling a little skeptical about Jordan Addison?
I am not going to call Jordan Addison a bad wide receiver. I am going to call him a bad value at ADP.
Fair.
So I think Addison is probably fine as a wide receiver moving forward. But, there's just too much going on in this offense where I don't think that there's any expectation that we should be getting another 10 touchdowns out of him, because even though he might be, getting targeted a little bit more while TJ Hawkinson is out, we're also looking at an offense that's debuting a new quarterback that, it's going to be Darnold and JJ. It's going to be a different offense in a way. It's probably not going to be as productive, stay on schedule quite as well. All those things are going to hurt him. And if you're not scoring as many touchdowns, you're going to have a hard time repeating 10, even if you score as many touchdowns as what the Vikings did last year. I don't think they're going to score that many touchdowns. So I think you want to lean on the running game a little bit. If you're Minnesota, you've got two good running backs there that you can rely on. You've got Justin Jefferson that you can rely on, and I think Addison's going to make some plays, but I can't buy him at this price.
Dan, so the way that I've been approaching, and I'm curious your thoughts, both you guys here. I'm curious your thoughts on this. The way that I've been, because the one thing that you can point to for Addison, it is so consolidated of a passing attack, and behind Jefferson, he should be the number 2, especially with no Hawkinson, and
KJ Osborne is gone.
Well, and the depth chart's bad. The depth chart's also bad. You're talking about a depth chart, and I know Brandon Powell is on this depth chart. I'm pulling it up right now, but the laundry list of guys.
No, D-bro is Brandon Powell,
Jalen Naylor, guys like this, that you've just never heard of.
Trent Sherfield, Tristan Jackson, my UDFA love list guy Ty James, all the way at the bottom there. But this all goes back to, okay, so in this consolidated passing offense, if I'm not in on Jordan Addison, then who are we in on for this offense? And for me, the way that I see this offense playing out, I think Justin Jefferson could be, and where I think we've kind of jumped the shark. I don't disagree about the quarterback play, but you talk about, okay, what happens in passing attacks where they're not other high-end target earners? What happens? The alpha wide receiver usually just commands even more of a target share. So I think we could see a career high target share for Justin Jefferson. And if that is the case, and we get league average play at quarterback, even with all those schlubs starting last year, Justin Jefferson was wide receiver 4 in fantasy points per game. He gets the bump into a 31% target share, 32% target share, which can happen. We've seen wide receivers garner target shares like this. Then maybe we are sleeping on Justin Jefferson just a tad bit, where maybe he should be top 3 wide receiver, not wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 in some ranks and things like that. I think this offense could just condense around Justin Jefferson even more, where he's legit drawing 12 to 15 targets every single damn week, maybe somewhere it's higher than that. And the guy I want to mention here is, I think one of the best values we're getting in drafts right now is Aaron Jones. We've talked about it in numerous seasons, and here's the thing: the injury and the age is all built into him. That's all built into that risk is built into where he goes in drafts. But how many years have we talked about unleash Aaron Jones, make Aaron Jones the guy? I'm sorry for everybody out there. Ty Chandler's not as good as you think he is. Aaron Jones could literally
Dan's crying right now.
Dude, I'm just going by the numbers. The numbers say all we need to know. Ty Chandler's tackle breaking metrics were not great. His fantasy production for last year when he was a starter was really propped up, when people want to look at it, by that one monster game against the bottom 3 run defense versus Cincinnati. I think Aaron Jones could be a smash pick this year. All we have to do is get health. And when we saw him healthy last year, he was still the same guy we've always loved. So, now we get the discount. Now he could play maybe 60, 65, maybe 70% of the snaps. Now we get an offense where could we see Aaron Jones get 80, 90 targets in this damn offense this year? Because Hawkinson, we don't know when we get him. Addison's not a high-end target earner. Somebody's got to catch the damn ball behind Justin Jefferson. I love Aaron Jones this year, and I'm not going to apologize for it. But thoughts, guys, thoughts. I'm just going to open this up to the floor.
It's okay. Aaron
tell
Jones...
me if I'm drinking too much of my own Kool-Aid, okay?
No, I have Aaron Jones in my projections, 65 targets and a combined 8 touchdowns. So He ends up coming in as the running back 13 for me in PPR, 45th overall in best ball value rating in PPR formats. So a player that I think
you said RB13,
RB13,
and he is getting drafted as the RB19.
Yeah,
right.
So he's versus ADP probably about 2.5 rounds mispriced.
I love it.
Yeah, I like the price on Aaron Jones as well. I do think that the Vikings like Ty Chandler well enough that they are going to use him. He's going to help take some of the load off of Aaron Jones, and I think he is still working on becoming as good of an NFL back as he's going to be. What he needs is just basically touches. I see the potential there with Chandler, and I really, really, really like him late in drafts because of all the contingent things that could happen if Aaron Jones does get hurt again. If Chandler does take that next step, there are a lot of reasons to like Chandler where he's going, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Aaron Jones is a nice value where he's going at right now too. The Vikings are just being slept on in general because of the offensive changes. My main concern is if this is an offense that just does too much 3 and out due to bad quarterback play. But I'm enough of a believer in the Kevin O'Connell offense that I think with, Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy, they're probably going to be able to stay on schedule and string together some drives. I don't think that this is going to be an offense that's going to turn into a real shit show.
I want to give you some hope too, Dan. I think that, and this I've said this before on some shows, but I think that the absolute plan probably for JJ is I think he starts week 7 after the bye week. I think that they're going to shield him because if you look at those first few weeks, it is a murderer's row of really good defenses. Like the first 5 weeks of the season before the bye week, they play the Giants, the 49ers, the Texans, the Packers, and then the freaking Jets. After that, the schedule really lightens up. Like I think Detroit's going to field a good defense this year. So again, then they get the Lions, the Rams, the Colts, Jacksonville, Tennessee. There's some holes in that to where like you don't want to throw the rookie into the fire for the first few weeks, and especially with that murderer's row of defenses. I think we're going to see J.J. McCarthy starting in week 7.
That seems fair. And maybe, you get T.J. Hawkinson back in week 8 if he goes on 6 weeks of a pup, then you got you get him back week 8, you get McCarthy going, and we move forward. We have also got a rookie wide receiver who's been reportedly returning punts, and there's been some chatter about, this is not a big deal because teams want to get their dynamic players involved with the new kickoff rules and formations, blah, 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 blah. But it's Rome Odunze with Chicago getting this report, a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. This report, I think, is more smoke than anything, but will we be looking back in 2025, like a year from today, July 2nd, 2025, and saying, what was Rome Odunze being drafted at wide receiver 38? There were reports that he was returning kicks. Like, this feels like it's just a trap story. D-Bro, how are you approaching Rome Odunze and the Chicago Bears offense?
Again, you want to talk about the list of players that I'm drafting one metric shit ton of? It's Rome Odunze's in that, man. He's inside my... Hold up. I want to tell you because I don't want to lie to you guys. He is in... I know he's inside my top... He's my 3rd most drafted wide receiver right now. I don't... like, again, we talk about ambiguity of passing attacks, of backfields, and people shy away from this stuff. These are the leverage points. These are the situations you need to be diving into and picking your spots in drafts. When the market says, I don't know. How did that work out for everybody last year when we said, I don't know which Dolphins running back to draft? Work out well for anybody? No, not so good. No, okay. Well, when we deal with all these certainties, like we know last year, we knew the Houston Texans were going to be terrible. CJ Stroud has 2 scores. And then it's like Nico Collins was one of the best, if not the best value of the entire freaking draft season. people deal with all these situations, and they know, man, they know DJ Moore is going to be the wide receiver 1, and Keenan Allen's not going to fall off, and Keenan Allen's going to play in 2 wide receiver sets. We don't know any of that. And what I just keep going back to with this passing attack, and with Rome Odunze in particular, is, did we so quickly forget all of those draft takes when we were going up to the NFL draft and people had dynasty rookie drafts, and everybody's like, Rome is in that top 3. Hell, he was some people's wide receiver 1 over Marvin Harrison Jr. Some people had him as the clear number 2 over Malik Neighbors. That's not how I had it in my ranks. The way that I approached those top 3 guys in drafts, in the NFL draft, the way I discussed them was, I don't give a crap who's your wide receiver 1, 2, and 3. These guys are in their own tier. You can make a case for any one of them, and I don't think it really matters. Like, the takeaway for them was, they're all really damn good at football. And so you're telling me right now that the market is handling Rome Odunze as a wide receiver 3. Some drafts, he will fall as a wide receiver 4. And you're telling me that we definitively know that Rome Odunze cannot enter this passing attack. Like, what happens, guys, if Rome enters this passing attack and he is just the dude? Like, and I'm not telling you that DJ Moore goes away or Keenan Allen is total dust. What if Rome Odunze is that damn guy? Like, nobody's baking that in to how they're drafting, what the market is saying. Nobody's baking that in because, oh, well, Keenan Allen was really good last year. DJ Moore was really good. Did anybody see Jamar Chase coming out with a wide receiver 5 season in his rookie season, flanked by Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins? And yes, we can make the case that DJ Moore is better than those two guys. I mean, I was drafting a crap ton of Jamar Chase too, man. And like, but at that spot, he was getting drafted as a wide receiver 2 in that draft season. You're telling me Rome Odunze is falling all the way and getting drafted as a wide receiver 3 or 4, that DJ Moore cannot get hurt, he can't miss time. Keenan Allen can't take a step back. Rome Odunze can't be not only the field stretcher, but what if Chicago's passing offense throws at a top 5, top 10 clip? Because Shane Waldron did that in Seattle. Like, all of these things that where the market is baking in so much damn certainty about Rome Odunze, I'm going the other way and saying, I remember when we all talked about as a collective and the echo chamber was like, Rome is that talented. He's an alpha level talent. But now when we get into redraft season and best ball season, everybody's like, oh, I forgot about all that. Rome is definitively the number 3 wide receiver. That's exactly blah, 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 blah. And that's the take you hear out of everybody's mouth. I'm not doing it, man. I'm drafting a crap ton of Rome.
All right, Dan.
Yeah,
Also,
I mean,
is the Rome an empire in your brain constantly too?
Oh man, Bradley.
Wow.
That's terrible.
That was I won't even say it's bad. I'll just say that was something, Brad.
Yeah,
that was something.
That was something. And I'm going to try to make something out of it. Yeah, I'm in on Odunze because of the fact that he's just so talented. I mean, this is the part where I have to let my dynasty brain take over and tell me that, you know what, even though, my best ball brain is looking at this offense and it's saying, boy, there's only so many targets to go around, and you got DeAndre Swift, who's a pretty good receiver in the backfield, plus these other 2 very established wide receivers who have shown us, for year after year after year how good they are and all that. I still have to just keep coming back to, Rome Odunze, number 9 pick, in that top tier that Debro was talking about. There's a ton of reasons to stay in on him no matter what. And when the price is this cheap, it makes it really easy to do. So yeah, I'm totally in on it. I don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to happen, but I feel pretty good that you're not going to be wasting a draft pick here, especially at wide receiver. What is it, 38 right now? That's just Lord. Crazy. Yeah. That's so you don't even have to make him your wide receiver 3. You can make him your wide receiver 4.
Yeah, the contingency upside for Rome Odunze is massive given what we've seen from Caleb Williams in college. And then also, the pathway for Keenan Allen to just play half the games and then Rome Odunze establish himself as the wide receiver 1. It's going to be hard for me to see like DJ Moore get pushed out of the way. I think DJ Moore greater than the T. Higgins, talent. If we're making that comparison of Jamar Chase and and T Higgins. I think that the metrics are a little bit different there, but could we see him just completely just be the other outside wide receiver along with DJ Moore? Yes, I think that is the reality. And so the redraft might be a little rough for the first couple games. I wonder if that, it does take a little bit to get going, but then at this point, like, we know the trajectory of how rookie wide receivers play throughout the season. They just continue to get better. And there are usually reasons why. Maybe it's an injury. Maybe it's a scheme shift. Maybe it's the bye week that allows the coaching staffs to make adjustments. Whatever the case may be, there's always reasons for these wide receivers to make that leap throughout year one. And Rome Odunze is a strong candidate to do so. And we want to be in on drafting him. All right, D-Bro, we'll give you a layup here. Talk to us about, for 1 minute, 60 seconds on the clock, Jaleel McLaughlin. We got to put a clock on it, or else you'll talk to us for another hour about him. So
it's pretty fair. That's pretty fair, man. I keep Jaleel McLaughlin's my highest drafted running back right now. I've been on him, been drafting him since January, February before the NFL draft. He dodged all the possible landmines of the NFL draft. I'm not worried about Audric Estime. They're going to play at totally different roles in this offense. And I want the freaking passing down back in the Sean Payton offense. Over the last 9 years of Sean Payton coordinating an NFL offense, and I probably could go back even farther. That's all the data that I have to sit here and spit about it, though. Last 9 years, his offense has never finished outside the top 5. Actually, top 4 in targets to the running back position. They led the NFL last year in targets to the running back position. Jaleel McLaughlin crushed in every single efficiency metric you can possibly find last year. He was 14th in explosive run rate, 5th in missed tackles forced per attempt, 4th in yards after contact per attempt, and yards per route run. Javonte Williams, if he does not get the juice back, could lose some of the early down stuff to Jaleel. He probably loses a lot of the passing down stuff. And people think that I hate Javonte because I love Jaleel so much. I don't hate Javonte. I just worry about, does he ever get the tackle breaking juice back? If that doesn't happen, then it's probably another rough season for Javonte, and Jaleel eats into his workload even more. But the thing about this is, guys, is Jaleel doesn't have to eat into Javonte's workload for him to smash. Like last year, if you just combined, he takes over the passing down role. That's all we're projecting here. He would have had 82 freaking targets between him and Samaje Perine. That would have tied for the second most amongst all running backs. So the pathway is clearly there. It's a talented as hell player. The team and Sean Payton have talked about him the entire offseason. It's free money, man. Just free money in drafts.
Dan, are you taking the free money in Jaleel McLaughlin?
I am taking some free money. I am less enthusiastic about him than D-Bro, just because of the fact that Sean Payton, despite the incredible efficiency that he showed, Payton seems to have no real desire for efficiency, because he also kept Marvin Mims off the field despite incredible efficiency. So, I do worry about that aspect of it. I think McLaughlin probably
Dan,
has...
what you're saying is Sean Payton #fake sharp.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. No, but D-Bro is exactly right about the running back targets. I mean, that's been a noted factor in the Sean Payton offense for years. And the thing is, you really almost have to believe that either Perine is going to be kept around and going to see a significant role still, or that Blake Watson is going to jump up and overtake Jaleel McLaughlin. Otherwise,
Blake Watson over Perine. Let's go, baby.
Hey, I'm drafting some Blake Watson.
I am too.
I'm doing that too.
I love it.
Yep.
Somebody out of this backfield is going to emerge as a monster freaking bout. Somebody. And
right.
my bet right now is Jaleel, but somebody is going to do that.
Team Blake Watson here. Let's go, baby. No hate to McLaughlin. I just think he's McLaughlin 2.0. And, there we go. We're here for that. I think that Perine would be interesting. Let's say he goes to the Dallas Cowboys. He could be an RB2-ish, something, maybe, pass, whatever. Possibly. I think the RB1 for Dallas is not yet on the roster, whether it's Miles Sanders, Khalil Herbert, Samaje Perine. look out. Yeah, I'm thinking it. But that's not the case yet. It's Ezekiel Elliott and it's Rico Dowdle. Right now, Rico Dowdle and Marshawn Lloyd are going right next to each other. Dan, you're on the clock. You need a running back. Are you choosing Dowdle or Lloyd at that spot?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to go Lloyd here, but if I got too heavy, then I'd go right back to Dowdle. But in a vacuum, saying I have 0 shares of either one, I'm probably going Lloyd. But I do think that Dowdle is a lot better than people think he is. He's got a lot better chance to earn significant touches in this offense than people think he does. So, for those reasons, I've got to bring along some Dowdle as well. But if I'm going to be heavier on one than the other, it's going to be a little bit heavier on Marshawn Lloyd.
D-Bro?
I think to Dan's point, the real answer here is both. I'm drafting a ton of both of these guys. Again, to Dan's point, if I got to take one guy, I'm going to take Marshawn Lloyd. He was my RB1 in the NFL draft process. I love the kid, man. He over the last 2 seasons in college, he was top 20 in every single efficiency metric that you can find. It backs up what you already see on the film. The Packers have talked about. And that's the thing that all the Josh Jacobs stands want to bury their head in the sand. They just want to ostrich it. They want to pretend like it's not real. That LaFleur has already come out and talked about Lloyd having a real role in the passing attack. So all this workhorse stuff that people are trying to project for Josh Jacobs, the team and the head coach has already told you that Marshawn Lloyd is going to have a role in the passing attack. So where the hell is that workhorse role for Josh Jacobs coming from? I don't understand it. I keep drafting Marshawn Lloyd because I'm a believer in the talent. I believe that all the team has to see is that Josh Jacobs is the same guy that he was last year, that the high-volume season totally cooked him, and Marshawn Lloyd can lead that backfield in touches this year and not Josh Jacobs. But I love both those guys at cost, man. I agree with Dan. Rico Dowdle is a better player, and Mike McCarthy freaking loves him. They have talked about him in numerous iterations. The only thing that Rico Dowdle has not been able to do is stay healthy. But if you look at some of the deeper efficiency metrics, again, amongst all running backs, or at least 53 qualifying running backs that had at least 80 carries last year, Rico Dowdle was still 16th in yards after contact per attempt. He had the 23rd lowest stuff rate. So, I know we're dealing with a small sample, but you can even go pull up, ancient OG truther Rico Dowdle tweets from me when he came out as a prospect. I really love the kid. He's got size. He's got the athletic measurables. He is serviceable, maybe, #good in the passing game. We'll see. But I think that we could be looking at Rico Dowdle and we're like, oh, but Ezekiel Elliott, you're telling me it's week 5, week 7, and Zeke is just a situational goal line guy. He's basically their A.J. Dillon, but now Dowdle is getting more of the goal line work, and Dowdle is the guy where he's taking all of the work in between the 20s. He's going to be an RB2, and he's not getting drafted like that.
Love it. I'm big on Marshawn Lloyd myself as well. I think Dowdle, we know that Ezekiel Elliott doesn't have juice. At least Dowdle might have some juice. That's the thing. So
every touch by Ezekiel Elliott is going to be a gift to the opposing defense.
Yep.
Very good. D-Bro, it's been great.
Sacrifice on the establish the run to the establish the run gods. That's all. That's
right. I love it.
That's phenomenal. D-Bro, it's been great having you on. Make sure you guys are checking out D-Bro's work on Fantasy Pros. Make sure you're following him on the X Machine at D-Bro_FFB. Anything else you want to drop for the people?
So few little nuggets. Fantasy Pros draft kit is live. So fantasypros.com/kit. Be using the mock draft simulator. Again, that's fantasypros.com/mock. All those things get you ready for this upcoming fantasy season. And my perfect draft article is live on the site right now. Will be updated throughout the rest of the entirety of the offseason. I've got almost 80 players written up in that article right now. Over 20 guys that I'm targeting in late rounds. All of the guys, most of them that we discussed on this show today, are in that article. And I'll say this is a labor of love. I'm still working on, and it will be live probably next week, my top 150 players with all of them written up.
Debro bringing the fire. Yes. Dan, anything for the people before we peace out for tonight?
Not too much. Just I just put up another article on Player Profiler, pointing out your late round tight ends that you want to be in on. So make sure you take a look at that. As of when this airs, it will be a couple days ago that I was on Wake and Take with Jason Allwine. That was a fun show. As we were recording, that was today earlier. But anyway, the Tuesday, July 2nd, Wake and Take is the one that I'm on. So that was a lot of fun as well. So make sure you check those out. And otherwise, just keep checking in here at StackHunters. We're going to lead you to glory.
Well, everyone have a safe and happy and fun-filled 4th of July festivities. We hope all of you have a great time with friends, family, and delicious food. Until next time, on behalf of Debro and Dan, I'm Bradley. Good luck in the best ball streets, everybody.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.